Hi everybody, for today's intense lesson, I'm going to teach you guys how to do a spring. And hopefully you've seen the spring grab tutorial already, which is probably why you're watching the spring. If not, you probably know that the spring is actually a really cool flourish to learn, and I'm going to teach it to you right now. The most important thing about spring to begin with is that a lot of people who I see do springs, they always go like against their tummy, or they go and it's all messy and stuff. So before we start anything at all, you know that the most important thing about a spring is that you got to keep it clean. Like this, see? So that when you end the spring, it's clean. You don't need to like do this and all, because you got to have that kind of nice ending, the nice and it's done. You know that kind of feel. Now I'm going to move on to the finger positioning when it comes to doing a spring. Now I think most people when they do springs, they do it on just the flat edges like this. So it's here, and then they just shoot it on the sides. And think about it, you can actually hear the difference between a spring that is shot by the corners and a spring that is shot by the sides. Now there's a reason why I shoot it from the corners, and I'll explain that to you in a while. But for now, let me show you the difference in just the sound alone. Look, the sound when it's shot by the sides is, it's kind of, but if you want a really controlled kind of feel, it's like this. At the corners, it goes, and that's something that really adds a nice touch of finesse. So how do you really shoot it from the corners? I mean, a lot of people think, oh, you know, just go straight to the corners, but you won't get exact stability that you like. So this is how you do it. First of all, contrary to the traditional spring, I don't really use my pinky to shoot and cradle the cuts. You know, a lot of people would use their pinky and then they put the whole hand there. I shift it down a bit and I use my ring finger because it really helps me with the pressure, and my ring finger is stronger than my pinky. So I'm going to show you where it is. Now first of all, this corner here is going to be like that. This is my ring finger, and it's going to be faced here, see? If you notice, it's kind of 1/3 off and 2/3 on the actual side of my deck. And you can see that the corner that I hit is right here. That's how I cradle the cuts. You see? And for my thumb, it's slightly different. You can see 1/3 here and 2/3 on the flat. 2/3 on the flat, 1/3 here. So it's here and it's here. And you can see that this really gives me enough support and control. Now the next part is you don't want to have your pinky all like spastic and everything, so kind of keep it clean like this. If you want, you can raise it up a bit for that kind of touch of finesse, and yeah, that's really it. Alright, so let's talk about the pressure when it comes to doing a spring. When I first started out and I first learned the spring, I felt that the cuts were meant to be shot out and like, and that really didn't give it the kind of elegance, grace or control that, you know, a spring should have and could have. So instead of applying pressure and just shooting them like this immediately, it's kind of like built up pressure that is released. So it's like this, watch. Instead of straight away, it's built up pressure that is released. So it gives it this very controlled, clean feeling, instead of all over the place. So I'm going to come a bit closer for you guys to kind of take a look at how I apply that pressure and I release it by showing you that my thumb is the one that does all the work. Later in the overview you can see a clearer picture, but I'm kind of just going to explain to you right now. So it's like this, and look at my thumb. It kind of does this as the cuts go down. So I'm applying pressure and allowing each cut to go along for the ride. So it looks like that. Here, and the cuts go along for the ride. Now another important thing to note is that the cuts are not shooting out of my fingers like this, they're shooting out of my thumb. Now, what I first experienced when I first learned the spring was that when I shot the cuts kind of went back like that. You see, it's not really nice. It's like you're shooting yourself. Oh, cool. It has to go down like this. It has to be controlled. And so I asked myself, what is it that controls the direction of a spring? And the idea is where your thumb is pointed. And the answer is where your thumb is pointed. So look, if I wanted the spring to go back, I would do this, right? And look, it's kind of pointing in that direction. You want to have the thumb kind of point down, look, and maintain that position so that all the cuts go down. So the position of where your thumb is and how the cut shoot is really important, and that's how you can get a spring to look the way you want it to look. Next part is really about how you receive the cuts. When you shoot the cuts, it's pressure and release. When you receive the cuts, your hand should be in a very open straddle position. So a straddle position would be like this, where index finger is here, the pinky is here. But when you're receiving the cuts, the straddle, a very open style, should kind of feel like this. See, it's a very open position. It's kind of like a cradle where you knew if the cuts dropped, it would fit in perfectly. Which means if you were to spring, they would fit perfectly. Now it's not tight or anything, but you can see that it fits really well. So the cards kind of have a bit of allowance space to go anywhere, but just like that, and they're perfectly in place. So remember, a really, really important part is how you shoot the cards and how you receive the cards. Once again, like a cradle, this is always behind, kind of slanted to prevent the cards from falling down. So even if my hand is slanted like that, I can still receive the cards. So the key points are, first, your positioning. Remember to keep it clean, so don't shoot it against yourself. Aim where you want to shoot it. Bring your hand, receive it with the correct grip, shoot with the correct grip, but don't shoot anyhow and all over the place. Apply the pressure, release the pressure, keep it clean, have the right sound, and yeah, that's basically it. Now, some people are probably going to ask me, how do I get a spring to get longer? And like, they want to do a spring like longer and everything. So here's some advice on that. Instead of just pulling up and coming back down, it's possible, but another way to kind of do a longer spring is to kind of cheat it a bit. So instead of going up and down, you can drag the spring and make it look longer than it actually is by pulling this first and then following through with the other hand. So it looks like that. So now you have a feeling of a really extended spring, because I think often when we watch a spring it kind of looks like this and it's done. But what if a spring went, it would have a much greater sense of length and as well as finesse. It has this whole, it's very deliberate. It's not so much like, hey, it's a squirty spring, but more of a, oh, that's a nice spring. So that's it on the spring. I'm going to take you to the overviews with the slow-mos where you can see everything in much clearer detail. So practice well. I'll see you.